Boy, and he's hurt. Dak Prescott's hurt.
Just be all part of his great story.
The game of football is everything to me.
My plans when I head into camp were to be better than I was before I broke my ankle.
You're looking at Dak on the practice field.
He's tracking to be ready for the opener.
The expectation is for this team to contend for championships.
Prescott wings the ball. Touchdown, Prescott!
This is my home. I'm not leaving. I'm a Cowboy, and this is only the beginning.
With a new contract in hand, is there any quarterback in the NFL under more pressure this season than this guy, Dak Prescott? Safe Seal sits down with the Cowboys franchise quarterback and why someone in our panel today thinks he still has a lot to prove. And with that, we say hello and welcome into NFL Live. I'm joined by over here on this wall, you can see Dan Orlovsky and Mina Kimes, and also Kimberly Martin. And I am Field Yates. We'll get to them in just a moment. But on Tuesday, Patriots cornerback Stephon Gilmore quote tweeted the graphic showing the top 10 highest paid cornerbacks and simply stated, oh, okay. Gilmore recently skipped the team's mandatory minicamp as he looks for an amended contract. The 2019 Defensive Player of the Year is entering the final year of a 5-year, $65 million deal with the Patriots and is set to make $7 million this year after having $5 million of his 2021 salary advanced into 2020. Let's go right out onto the scene where Mike Reese, our Patriots reporter, is in Foxborough at Gillette Stadium. Mike, what more can you tell us about where things stand with the Patriots and Gilmore?
Well, Field, think about it this way. They had so many big money signings this year, and they built a lot of positive momentum this spring. They just want to make sure the player in this jersey is going to be happy when they get back for the start of training camp in late July. And Stephon Gilmore's tweet is a reminder that there is some business for them to still take care of in that regard between now and the start of training camp. Without getting too far into the contract weeds, if you will, here's how we got here. Stephon Gilmore signed a 5-year, $65 million contract as an unrestricted free agent back in 2017, and the deal was strong at the time, Field. It had $40 million in injury guarantees. The average annual value, $13 million per year. The market has really exploded since that point. And here's Stephon Gilmore saying, the last year of my deal, the base salary is a little bit lower because the guarantees were so much higher earlier in the deal. He's almost trying to entice the Patriots back to the negotiating table.
If there's Patriots news, there is nobody to discuss it that is better than Mike Reese. Mike, thank you so much, as always. Ever since coming over from the Bills in 2017, Stephon Gilmore has been incredible. According to NFL's next-gen stats, he has allowed just over 5.9 yards per target when he's the closest defender. That's the best of any DB who has been targeted at least 200 times. Teams complete just 51% of their passes when throwing Gilmore's way. That's the third lowest of any DB over the last 4 years. Impact player. All right, now we get to our panel, and Mina, I'm going to start with you. Really simple question, but an important one. Just how crucial is Stephon Gilmore to the Patriots defense?
I think he's extremely important, and I think they need to make this work because this Patriots defense Field is built back to front, by which I mean the secondary is the strength of the unit. Last year, even when the performance declined precipitously and largely due to, some of the departures in free agency, the opt-outs, injuries, they still finished about average against the pass. That wasn't because of the pass rush. In fact, the Patriots finished second worst in the NFL in pass rush win rate. It's because the coverage was so sticky. And that's not just Gilmore. J.C. Jackson, excellent. Jonathan Jones, terrific slot corner. Safeties are good. You've got a rising safety in Kyle Duggar. But surprisingly, behind Gilmore, there's not a lot of depth at outside cornerback. I know they signed Jalen Mills this offseason, but they still need him because this is a secondary that is complicated. They play a lot of man. They're one of the better groups in the league, and I think to lose him in a year when you're obviously so determined to compete, and the Patriots are based on their signings, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, Mina, I would say that I've always believed the greatest gauge for a cornerback or how good he is how well he plays in man coverage. No corner in the league over the last 3 years has been asked to play man-to-man coverage more than Stephon Gilmore. Now, I think this is a top 5 defense in New England with Stephon Gilmore. Now, why do I say that? So, a lot of times right now in the NFL, we hear 11-on-11 football when it comes to the offensive side because of the quarterback run game, right? 11-on-11. I think Stephon Gilmore allows the Patriots to play kind of a 10-on-9 defense. You could put him on a team's number one receiver on a consistent basis, put him by himself, and then the 10 guys left on defense, if you're not playing a running quarterback, can play 10-9 football. Now, the caveat to the whole situation, I would say, is this. Even if let's say they decided to move on from Gilmore, I still think it's a top 10 defense. Because I think New England is a defense that is potentially going to play a ton of 3 safeties, what is known as big nickel in the NFL. You mentioned Kyle Duggar. They still have McCourty and Adrian Phillips. So if you put 5 defensive backs on the field and only have 2 of those guys as corners, well, then one could be J.C. Jackson, and one could be Jonathan Jones or Williams, and then those 3 safeties play. So if that's going to be the philosophy of New England, it's going to minimize the necessity for 3 or 4 really good cover corners. J.C. Jackson is absolutely lights out as a corner. So really the whole situation for me comes down to what kind of scheme do they think they're going to play a ton, dependent on how really important he's going to be to their defense this season.
I agree with you, Dan, that I think this is upside for top 5, which is remarkable considering this is the worst run defense in the NFL last year, by the way. To me, the danger of this is, first of all, the Patriots' defense is the strength of the team. It's not the offense going into this year. If you take Gilmore out, while you're right, I do imagine that you're going to have 3 safeties on the field a fair amount. Jackson is really good. He can cover a number 1. Suddenly, it's like, okay, you take him out, and then suddenly another corner has to step up, and the pressure on every single person in the defense increases, including the front 7. Dan, you know that the Patriots' defense, they don't blitz a ton. It's a lot about generating pressure on the inside and sort of making life uncomfortable for the quarterback while the corners hold up in coverage. Without Gilmore, it just gets a little bit harder, and suddenly depth becomes starters, and there's pressure on pieces that you saw previously as just incremental to step up and become disruptive players in this defense.
And as we know, coaches think about now, GMs think about the future and now, and it's worth noting that both J.C. Jackson and Stephon Gilmore are going into contract years right now. You'd think the Patriots are mindful of 2022 and beyond, but Cameron, let's introduce the possibility that Stephon Gilmore could not be a Patriot next year. Maybe his frustration boils over. If he were to be traded, as you canvass the league, what would a potential deal look like?
Field, so obviously you got to gauge other teams' interests. And so when I reached out to league sources, the feedback I got was there'd be at least 3 to 5 teams that are interested in Stephon Gilmore. Yes, he's a little older than 30, but he's still a very good player. It's interesting that from everybody I spoke to, they all came back with, I give up a third. I could see a team giving up a third for him. The question is, do you do an extension with him or hold off? But the discrepancy in the conversations I had was what kind of team would be interested in Stephon Gilmore. From some people I heard a team that thinks it's ready to win it all right now, so a Rams, a Chiefs. I also heard a team that might be a little desperate, a team that has a defense that is underperformed, like the Raiders. So it'll be interesting to watch this situation unfold.
Well, one thing we know is that wherever Stephon Gilmore plays this year, he's going to bring good football with him. He and Jalen Ramsey are the only cornerbacks who have been selected to the Pro Bowl in each of the past 3 seasons. It's a good day to be Ryan Ramczyk as the Saints locked up the indispensable right tackle, agreeing to an extension with him that will pay him $96.2 million over the next 6 seasons. If you're wondering where that ranks historically, he's the highest paid right tackle ever. Not bad. Coming up next on NFL Live, Mina will give us her top 5 non-quarterback rookies that need to make the biggest impact on their team right out of the gate. Can't wait for that. And later on, we'll dive into the situations that Kyler Murray and Dak Prescott are in as they have their sights set. The Jacksonville Jaguars head coach, all eyes turned towards Trevor Lawrence, the presumptive and eventual #1 overall pick. He's going to be great, but Urban Meyer is not trying to rush anything with this star pupil. In a recent interview with USA Today, here's what Meyer had to say about Lawrence's readiness for Week 1. He's not ready yet. He doesn't have to be ready yet. Adding later, we started installing the playbook with him well before the draft. So you can see the retention. He's got a really good work ethic, and he's progressed really well. All right, Kimberly, head over to you to talk about a little bit more from what we heard from Urban Meyer. What do you take away from his comments regarding Trevor Lawrence?
Field, I don't want to put any stock into anything that Urban Meyer or Brian Schottenheimer, for that matter, are saying in May, June, or July. Just get me to Week 1, because that's when we'll see how ready Trevor Lawrence is. Here's the reality. Every rookie NFL QB is going to have to deal with a learning curve. Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, all of them. So Trevor Lawrence is no exception. But here's what we also know. Urban Meyer was a great college head coach. He didn't have to come to the NFL. Why did he come to the NFL and go to Jacksonville of all places? Trevor Lawrence. So there's no doubt, despite what anybody says between now and week 1, there's no doubt that Trevor Lawrence is the future. He is their guy. He is their starter. And Urban Meyer would still be at Fox in a booth at the desk just like you right now if he didn't believe that Trevor Lawrence could be that guy. So I think all is well in Jacksonville.
So I don't want to risk the wrath of Mina Kimes by noting that wins are not a quarterback's. I can't even try to get what I'm trying to say. Wins are not a quarterback stat. But the point I was trying to make is that the last time a rookie quarterback led his team to a winning record was all the way back in 2012, and that was Andrew Luck. I was so nervous about Mina getting mad at me that I almost fumbled over my words 8 times. Now we'll get back to Mina and another rookie that got a lot of attention from teammates during his minicamp. This is from our ESPN.com Ravens reporter, Jamison Hensley. The headline is, "Wiggle While You Work." Rashad Bateman is turning heads with the Ravens. Mina, with that in mind, let's see you wiping your hands together. Give us your 5 most important rookies that are not quarterbacks for 2021.
Here we go.
Yeah, so important is the key word here, because what I'm doing is identifying the rookies who I think matter the most to their teams, have to come in and make an impact from day one. So I've got a list for you, prepared to incur the wrath of people whenever we make a list. The names that I have in mind, first, Rashad Bateman, who you alluded to with that article. You guys know how much I love him as a prospect. I particularly love him for the Baltimore offense, because when you look at this passing attack and why they struggled last year, a number of things jump out. But the most important factor was the absence of a number 1 true X wide receiver who could win outside. And those outside the numbers, that is open in this offense because of the threat on the run. I believe is that guy, and he can impact this offense from the jump. Second, I went with Devontae Smith. Just because this Eagles wide receiver group is so thin behind him, he has to step in immediately and make an impact from day one and be the guy. You know, Jalen Reagor, they drafted last year, struggled a bit as a rookie. I think he should be helped by the presence of Devontae Smith, but make no mistake, Devontae Smith is the number 1 wide receiver already in this offense, which is asking a lot for the rook. Number 3, I'm going to an offensive lineman. Rashawn Slater, I love this pick for LA. Left tackle out of Northwestern, super pro ready, polished, fell into their laps, but I especially love it for this team and for rookie quarterback Justin Herbert. This is an offensive line that struggled for a while, frankly, but really struggled last year. They made a number of additions, signing Corey Lindsey, Brian Bulaga comes back. Rashawn Slater, day 1 starting left tackle. On to the Giants. I really like this defense. We're going to talk about them a lot in the offseason. I love the secondary. I love the coach. The one hole they have, in my opinion, is edge rusher. They have made some signings. They gave Leonard Williams a big contract to give them an interior pass rush. But I wouldn't be surprised if Azeez Ojulari, edge rusher out of Georgia, has to come in and from the beginning of the season be an important piece on this defense in that front 7. Finally, last player, Kyle Pitts. Look, he's the best player out of the group. But the only reason I wouldn't say he's the most important is because they still have Calvin Ridley, who I do think is number 1 wide receiver. However, with Julio Jones out of this offense, Kyle Pitts is going to become a focus, which is actually a lot of a tight end, because tight ends often have a bit of an adjustment period to the NFL. Best weapon in the incredible piece for Arthur Smith to play with. I'm so excited to see what he does in this offense.
I love this list. Mina, this list is like when I make a food list and turn it into a tweet and send it out. Like, it's perfect, right? It's absolutely what I'm saying. I want to hit on a couple guys. I really want people to understand like how important the impact of Rashad Bateman can be on this Ravens offense. Because it's a really good offense without him, right? But think about Lamar Jackson having a number 1 receiver on the outside now that, hey, 3rd and 7, I could throw the ball to him. And then think about what it's going to do for Hollywood Brown. Hollywood Brown can live a little bit more on the inside. And then think of what it's going to do for Mark Andrews, who's already great in their run game. So, like, if he could have a Justin Jefferson type of year, not that great because Jefferson's special, but that great, the impact of their offense. And I've said all offseason, don't mistake Justin Herbert's performance last year thinking the offensive line was good. It was atrocious. But imagine if Rashawn Slater can become the next Ryan Ramczyk, who just got a bunch of money today. Like, what he's going to do when you have an offensive line and a superstar at quarterback, not only this year, because if he plays good this year, if he's Tristan Wirfs type of impact this year, this is a playoff football team. Like, this is a bona fide playoff football team because of that offense. I love the Ojulari thing because Patrick Graham, the Giants defensive coordinator, he can now take Ojulari and Leonard Williams and be like, okay, what pieces do we move on the offensive line to create these one-on-ones? So I love the list. 3 names that I wanted on the list, though. I think Kadarius Toney's just as big for the Giants as Ojulari. Like, can he go be Percy Harvin? Just because his playmaking ability. We know that Daniel Jones needs somebody that, if you could get the ball to him 12 times a game, I don't care if it's a pass, a jet sweep, push the ball downfield, that's a huge one. I also think Greg Newsome from Cleveland, and then Rondale Moore for Arizona, another guy who just needs touches. Those 3 names, I think, are just as important as those 5 you threw on your list.
For those unfamiliar with Dan's Twitter list, by the way, my 5-year-old nephew has a more refined palate when it comes to food than Dan. But that's neither here nor there.
Like
just go follow Dan Orlovsky.
You like potato chips. They're disgusting.
Come on, Dan.
Everybody likes potato chips, but you, Dan.
It makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. But I suppose that's neither here
because I like the way food tastes.
Nor there. Yeah, come on now. No Michelin stores coming your way. All right, so we just talked about Kyle Pitts. He's guaranteed with his money, but George Kittle, Travis Kelce, and Darren Waller, they're not paid as much.
One of the best in the NFL. He catches everything.
Kelce reaches up and makes the grab.
Stone cold Kittle.
You want one guy on this football team to get the ball. You want George Kittle.
Can you smell what the nuts?
It's a long time since we've seen a guy like this.
Darren's a great player, and I know Kittle and Kelce are as good as they get. So Waller's right up there with them.
From the established elite to the next man up, that will be Kyle Pitts of the Atlanta Falcons. As the Falcons use a chunk of their cap space, which they created when they traded away Julio Jones, by signing Kyle Pitts to his 4-year deal with a 5th-year team option. It's worth a fully guaranteed $32.9 million. Not bad coin. Now, that being said, Pitts' rookie deal was slotted, but now retired tight end Greg Olsen had some thoughts on how much tight ends around the league are paid. He said this recently on Part of My Take. We have to do the same expletive that a $15 million left tackle has to do and run the same routes against the same guy that a $15 million wide receiver has to run routes against. And they're going to pay us $7 million. All right, for more context, here are the top paid wide receivers and tight ends on a per year basis. At the very top, you got DeAndre Hopkins and Julio Jones, plenty of other superstars like Michael Thomas and Tyreek Hill. Some guys with new deals this offseason include the likes of Kenny Golladay plus Tyler Lockett. And after, that's right, 16 wide receivers, we finally get to the top paid tight end. That's George Kittle at $15 million behind the likes of Cooper Kupp and Brandon Cooks. All right, Dan, it's a question that I think is one we could spend an entire show on, but do we undervalue the tight end position in the NFL right now?
Heck yes. I didn't know that list was going to be that list until we just showed it. I mean, that's eye-popping to me. Those are some really good receivers, don't get me wrong, but like, my goodness, Kittle's 16th. This is why the tight end is undervalued, and this is why the tight end is the most important position outside of quarterback offensively, because you get 3 players in one if you get a really good guy. Like, you can get a tight end that can be an offensive lineman, both in the run game and the pass game when it comes to protection. Like, I can have my offensive lineman added in protection, and then I can have my offensive lineman added in the run game to double team or whatever. George Kittle is one of the best blockers in the NFL. Forget the tight end position. Then I could have him in the pass game as your inline guy, your traditional Mark Bavaro type of pass catcher. Obviously, huge threats in the red zone, but then I also can move those tight ends around as wide receivers. I could put them outside by themselves like we see the Chiefs do with Travis Kelce, the Raiders do with Waller, and even George Kittle. So, like, I'm getting 3 different pieces in one. Receivers are great, but no position in the NFL, really offensively certainly, can do as much with one body as an elite tight end can.
Okay. You said a lot of things I do agree with, so let's start there. First of all, I think the incredible value you can get from a tight end right now in today's NFL is the versatility. I mean, we're talking about George Kittle. He is sort of the poster boy for versatility and confusion, because the reason he's so deadly in that offense in particular is when he is lined up, you have no idea if he's going to block, if he's going to leak out, if he's going to run a vertical route. He is an absolute nightmare for defenses to defend as a result. Also, because the NFL is so pass heavy lately and over the last really 10 years, you've seen more defenses go lighter. Nickel is the new base. Cornerbacks are on the field as teams use 11 personnel, and because of that, you're able to get mismatches with tight ends when you use them in the passing game. It's easy to isolate them on a linebacker or even a safety that they're slower in. All of that is true. That said, versatility does not equal more value. Just because a tight end can do multiple things doesn't mean I wouldn't rather have a number one wide receiver who can go up against a team's, number one cornerback and get you 11 to 15 yards instead of 7 to 12 yards. I also believe the tight end position is kind of interesting, Dan, and you can tell me what you think about this in terms of the landscape, where there's a very clear top tier with Kittle, Kelsey, Waller. I would say Mark Andrews is sort of, and then you got, your Tunyons and Fants. And then it drops off quite precipitously. After that, I would say a lot of the tight ends in the NFL tend to be a bit more interchangeable. Whereas there's top maybe 10 to 15 wide receivers who I think are more useful to their offenses.
Yeah, I would agree with that, but that's one of the points of why it's so difficult to get those guys. There's more good receivers than there are really game-changing tight ends. Context matters here too. I don't think either of us are saying, "Hey, give me, Darren Waller over Calvin Johnson," right? That there's a difference in that. I also think it's important to point out, the NFL right now, offensive football is really about two things: information and matchups. And that's why tight ends are so near and dear to me, is because I can create information for my quarterback, my receivers, my tailbacks, my offensive line with the tight end way more than I could do it with the wide receiver. So, while the production may not be the same individually, everybody's better because of them. And I can't create matchups. You mentioned the nickel. I can't create matchups with a wide receiver like I can a tight end. And I could, I've been in offenses. I played with Dallas Clark, where we would call 3 plays in the huddle, and Dallas would line up by himself. And then depending on who went out to cover Dallas or what kind of defense it was, we called that play at the line of scrimmage. So it just made everybody in our offense better because of the information and the matchup that we had. And I think that's something that certainly financially is undervalued with the tight end position, where Greg Olson's completely correct.
I agree with that. I also think you mentioning information makes, and kind of running through these top tight ends, one thing they all have in common is really good offensive coaches. Obviously, Kelsey with Andy Reid, and of course George Kittle with Kyle Shanahan, but Gruden, for all the criticism, does a really good job with the offense in Las Vegas, Tunyon in Green Bay, and I can't help but think oh man, the tight end position might be more valuable if you have an offensive coordinator who knows how to use the player to create the mismatches we're talking about. Which, to bring this full circle, is why I'm so excited to watch Kyle Pitts with Arthur Smith, because that combination of him and Calvin Ridley is going to be a nightmare for defenses.
And of course, man, you remember, as Mina was alluding to, Arthur Smith was a tight ends coach earlier in his coaching career. He's got his eyes looking like saucers right now, thinking about Kyle Pitts in his office.
Just like mine.
Exactly right. All right, let's move over to Cam Newton, who, Cam Newton, as we all know, is in the midst of a quarterback battle with Mac Jones. Here's what he had to say in response to the haters. I feed off of it, but I don't feed it. It's two different things. When I censor, I'm moving way too fast, so I want to process that and make that fuel me. I don't dwell on what a person may say, what the person may say, she say. I just use it to my advantage, and I feed it what I don't want to feed it. Excuse me. Kimberly, that was a lot, and I'm having some vision issues, so I couldn't see all of it right at once. But from what you did see previously, what you may have heard right there, what's your reaction to Cam Newton right now in his quotes?
Field, I was just excited to hear you read that Cam Newton quote. I just wanted to hear Cam's words coming through your voice, so that tickled me. So I hear Cam. I hear it. We all have people that doubt us, and we all want to prove them wrong. But I think with Cam, there is a difference between haters and, genuine criticism that's rooted in stats and facts and the eye test. So Cam, listen, in his defense, last year's Patriots roster, it had holes. Offensively, it had holes. Like Tom Brady, one of the things Tom Brady was saying was, this offense, we don't have enough pieces. So I understand where Cam is coming from as far as he didn't have a lot to work with last year. That he also caught COVID, so we don't know, that affected him as well. But at the end of the day, when you looked at that offense, it left much to be desired. When there's errant passes, when there's throws that don't make it downfield, when there are opportunities to throw it deep and we don't take those opportunities, that does fall on Cam. So I think there is a difference between Cam haters, and I am not one of them. I hope he balls out this year. But at the end of the day, the Patriots have their franchise QB. So Cam wants to have a big year, but Mac Jones is still on the roster.
All right, well, one long time ago, Cam Newton was, of course, the number one overall pick. A more recent number one overall pick, Kyler Murray. And Kyler says he's tired of losing and is motivated to get to the playoffs for the first time in his NFL career. But did the Cardinals do enough this offseason to make the jump? Someone here thinks they did. In his career, but hasn't done so since 2017. Then in the draft, the Cardinals took a first-round linebacker for the second straight year, selecting Zaven Collins 16th overall. In the second round, they got Purdue's speedy wide receiver and playmaker Rondale Moore. But how about this from Kyler Murray, their quarterback? The roster certainly looks better on paper, but he's tired of losing. He had to say, quote, emotionally last season was definitely frustrating, especially for a guy like me. I want to win. Not going to the playoffs is weird for me. I know it's the NFL and I haven't been yet, but I've always played past the regular season in every sport. It's different. I am definitely not looking to get used to that. A lot of anger and frustration when you are losing those games you think you should win. At the same time, I'm a self-motivated guy. I take all that as motivation. All right, Dan, what do you make of Kyler Murray's comments? A guy who is entering his third season, but it feels like a critical one because he is the first overall pick just 2 years ago.
Yeah, if Kyler's tired of losing, thank God he wasn't in Detroit for 7 years like I was. Listen, I love the comments out of Kyler Murray. I always tell people, don't get numb to losing when you go to the NFL because you've fulfilled the dream or the check comes in. Because I know that happened to me. I was part of a high school program that won a lot of games and part of a college program that kind of flipped one from a loser into a winner. And you think, okay, I'm going to go win in the NFL. And then it doesn't happen because that's just the reality of the NFL. And I did it myself. And I watched teammates that were really good players do it. You become numb to losing. Because you're like, well, it's a business and a business, but winning and losing is not a business. So I'd love to hear this from Kyler Murray that he's like, I'm not going to allow myself to get used to the losing and continue to hate it. Yeah. I would point out two things on the football field that I want to see for them field. First of all, Cliff Kingsbury's offense. Coming from college to the NFL, the reason it struggled a little bit last year, and so did Kyler, was when teams decided to play zone defense. Now, Cliff's offense is all about creating space. And in college football, that's easy to do because of the players. They're slower. They're not as long. They're not as athletic. Yes. Create space, attack space. Create space, attack space. Well, when a defense in the NFL decides we're not going to give you the space, we're just going to play zone and allow our guys to run there, you have to attack with scheme. And Cliff didn't do that enough last year. So that's the first step, is he's got to do a better job of that, and so does Kyler. And then I want to touch on A.J. Green. Listen, A.J. Green, great career, all that. He cannot be their number 2 option, pass-catching-wise. He should be their 4th guy. It should be Christian Kirk and Rondale Moore as their 2-3 options in the middle. If A.J. Green catches 30 or 40 passes this year, that is a huge success. But he can't be reliant on A.J. Green as his number 2. Rondale Moore has a chance to be a really special slot receiver. Christian Kirk down the middle of the field as a slot receiver should be really good for them. Those 2 young players need to take steps just as much as Cliff Kingsbury in his scheme and Kyler in his execution.
Wow. Okay, Dan, I'm sorry to interrupt you with my yes and thank you, but I just agreed with everything you were saying about Cliff Kingsbury's offense, and I couldn't restrain myself. To Kyler's point, first of all, I agree. That notion that he will not be okay with winning, obviously that is important, and those are the hallmarks of a great quarterback. You also know, Dan, that I'm very opinionated about my belief that wins are not a quarterback stat because you have great quarterbacks on teams that don't win games. Heck, look at Justin Herbert last year. None of that was his fault. Or you have mediocre quarterbacks who can go all the way to the Super Bowl. There are a lot of things in this Arizona team that'll determine the season that are beyond Kyler's control. he can't fix the secondary. I think this is a secondary with a lot of holes. He can't change Cliff's scheme. Everything you said about him making it more of an NFL offense and not counting on his guys to just go out and win against zone defense, I could not agree more. What he can do is control the controllables. His pocket presence, his accuracy over the middle of the field. Those are things that are Kyler Murray's, they're under his own control. And if he focuses on that, everything else if everything else falls in place, then this is a playoff team.
So, Kimberly, it seems like Kyler is saying this is a make or break season for the Cardinals with his words. Do you agree with that assessment?